putting this on, and it's been an exciting last month, and it'll be good to catch up and see what new questions are out there. But this week, again, the topic was employment in the Senate, and I'm curious, I'm not sure where some of the conversations with unemployment is in the House, but to put the unemployment situation in perspective, we have 85,000 jobs that are available in Iowa. 67,000 people are unemployed. So what this number tells me is that there's plenty of opportunities out there for people to find a job if they need to. And so the time for unemployment reform is ready to go right now. And so in the Senate, we passed out our unemployment bill that will reduce the amount of weeks that somebody can apply for unemployment from 26 weeks down to 16 weeks. We'll join a list of about 11 other states that have gone about their unemployment system in the same manner. The area of contention between the House and the Senate in regards to unemployment is the 1 week waiting period, and I'm unsure if the House this week addressed that or not. But over about 40 states have a 1 week waiting period, so it's nothing new. And research has shown that most of the fraudulent payments occur within that first week. So I hope that we can address that by implementing a 1 week waiting period. Also, with taxes, we have a few tax bills that came out. Our big one was over a month ago. But being as it came out so early, it's not surprising that we are coming out with a few smaller pieces, and I'm sure it will talk about that as the forum continues. So I look forward to the questions, and thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone, for coming out. Thanks to Growth Alliance for putting it on, Iowa Central for hosting, as usual. This last month, we've been very busy in the House. Second funnel passed last week, so now we are just strictly in debate and working on budget and tax bills. So this week, as Chair of Human Resources, we didn't have a whole lot of committee policy bills pass the floor this week, but a few important ones did pass. The exciting thing this week for us was the Health and Human Service budget came out. And it funds a lot of priorities that we've been hearing from everyone in the healthcare industry. Number one, we are funding direct care workers for intellectually disabled and in community settings and in nursing homes with language that money will specifically go to the wages of direct care workers. That's something we've been hearing about. Workforce is an issue in all spectrum of healthcare. So we're excited about that. A couple other budget items that go along with a few of the bills that I've introduced. We are funding the enhanced rate for intensive psychiatric care, meaning that if there's a patient out there or a person out there with complex needs, they will be funded, reimbursed at a higher rate. And what we're hoping right now is what we expect from the hospital systems now. We have about between 45 and 80 open psychiatric beds in the state on any given day, but they're not staffed. We're hoping that this enhanced rate is going to staff those beds. A third piece of the budget that came out but was in the education budget, we've introduced a bill this year that will fund loan repayment for mental health care workers from the bottom to the top, psychiatrists to direct care workers in the community. That loan repayment that fund is fully funded in our education budget. So those are bills that started out working over the interim before we got back to session this year. Senator Kreinbrink and I have had many meetings with law enforcement and the hospital in Fort Dodge, and these are the ideas that came out of them, and now they will be coming to fruition at the end of the session. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to hear your questions this morning, and thanks to everyone for coming out. It is chilly.
Yeah, it is. Mike.
Is this on? Yep. Well, I also want to thank Iowa Central, the Growth Alliance, and especially for the coffee this morning. That means a lot to me. So, as I said, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So,
remember that, Mike.
Yeah, y'all know why he's saying that. So I think where we are right now in the legislature is our goal in the House is to be done Holy Week, which is kind of ironic, but for sure I think Easter's on the 17th. Our goal is to be done sometime that week before Easter. And I think we can be there. We're churning through, as Representative Meyer said, we're churning through the appropriation budget. So that's the real thing, constitutionally. That's really the only thing we really have to do is get the budget done, get it sent downstairs to the governor. Well, send it to the Senate, and then there's usually compromise. They'll send it back, and we'll go from there. Senator Green talked about the unemployment bill. We didn't have enough votes to keep that week in there, so the Senate put it back in. It's going to come back to the House. I would guess that what we will do is not concur with the Senate, and we'll send it back, and then it'll go to conference committees. So that's where that is. Thursday, because I see Al walk in, Representative Kaufman and myself offered an amendment to the admin and reg appropriation bill to put a moratorium on using eminent domain for carbon pipelines. Very specific. It doesn't stop the pipeline folks from going out and doing deals with farmers, but it does. It takes away the use of eminent domain until February 1st of 23, which gives us in the legislature the opportunity to try to figure this out. So that was Representative Kaufman and I worked on that for 2 weeks, trying to get that language worked out. You have to work it out with leadership, and then you have to work it out with Mike Bergen, Representative Bergen, who's chair of the admin and reg budget, because as you can understand, you just can't come up and want to stick things in a chairman's budget. You just have to make sure you have everything done. So this whole eminent domain situation is unique in the fact that you have Democrats, half the Democrats, the environmental Democrats, they want to get rid of eminent domain. The labor side of the Democratic Party that supports unions and labor, they want to keep that because those are good jobs, and so that's where the Democrat Party is. And then in the Republican side, we have those in agriculture that understand the issue very well and represent ag districts, and then we have Republicans that don't have very much ag district, or they're in parts of the state where they've never had to deal with pipelines, so they really don't understand the issue, and nor do they have people come up to them and say, boy, this is a big deal, we wish you'd address it. So it's a very unique subject when you work on it on the floor. So that bill passed as in the amendment went on, and so it's going over to the Senate. So hopefully the Senate will keep that language in there, and we'll have a 1-year moratorium in order for us to get this figured out. So I look forward to your questions, and we'll pass it over to the Senator.
And thank you, Representative Sexton. Thank you all for coming again, and also Iowa Central. We're to the point now at the end of session where we get down to, like Mike said, we're into the budget. The budget is probably our main issue. We're looking at spending around $8.2 billion. Instead of us, I think this year our approach is going to be, instead of us lobbing bills back and forth to each other, I think we've pretty much made up our mind, and I think it's pretty obvious to the House right now that they'll give us their targets, and then we'll just have to start negotiating from that point. And when we negotiate, then they'll be agreed upon, and when they're agreed upon, we can vote on it, send it back to the House, and the House will pass it. And that process usually takes about 2 weeks. It depends if it's nice outside and we have nice rain and we have sun and things are drying off, we can get out a little earlier because the farmers really like to get out in the field, so it kind of motivates them to get the process done. My main job is to come up with a large target and then to give the smaller targets to each one of the appropriation chairs, and then they will go to the appropriation chair of the House side and then negotiate and fall somewhere in between on the amount, and then also have to work out their priorities with each other. It's kind of if you like this, then I like this, and so they kind of go back and forth and we'll give and take and then come up with a budget that everybody can live with in that specific area. So when we're talking about certain things that are passionate to me or passionate to Representative Meyer or any of us up here, the other negotiating person might not be quite that passionate on that, but on some other issue, and so they a lot of times have to meet in the middle and address each other's passions maybe in a little different way. So that's kind of what I'm in right now, is the major budget mode. Not a lot of policy that I vote on policy as it comes to the floor, but most of my effort right now is going into the negotiations to try to get us out of there on time, and the budget is always the thing that holds us there the longest. So looking forward to your questions, and thanks again for coming.
Thank you, guys. The first question kind of goes to Mike Sexton, and the question goes to U.S. House, but where do we stand with the daylight savings bill? And the question specifically says, will the U.S. House pass the daylight savings time bill? So where are we at with daylight savings?
Well, so where we're at is in Iowa, it's over in the Senate, and they got it out of committee. Now, whether the Senate takes it up on the Senate floor, Senator Kreinbrink and I were just chatting about that before we started, and who knows what they want to do. But I didn't mean that in a bad way. Well, maybe I did. But as far as what Congress is going to do, so it made it off the U.S. Senate floor over to the House. I mean, I'm a long ways from Washington, so I don't know what they're going to do out there. I kind of have my gut tells me they'll probably pass it and send it to the president, but we're a long ways from that. And of course, my bill, even if the Senate passes it and the governor signs it, we're still beholden to the federal government. So even if my bill passes, we can't do anything until Congress decides to let us do something. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So. Okay.
This is a question from Dr. Jim Meyer. Has the Senate determined the budget monies for the higher ed, area? And I know that you are going to offer a target to your chair, and then she has to decide. And actually, she told me this weekend she's going to work on that. But where do we stand with the targets for all the budgets?
Actually, we haven't really even agreed on the large target with the entire amount of money. So that's probably going to be the first thing that's going to have to happen. And then each of the different appropriation committees will if one, like I said, if one chair likes community colleges and the other one likes region colleges, then they're going to have to, compromise. So we haven't been to that point yet.
Okay. This is probably for all of you. It says, I keep hearing that the new flat tax will lower everyone's taxes. Please explain how a low-income worker who currently pays a tax rate lower than the flat tax will pay lower taxes. So how does it affect all ranges?
So someone that does not pay any taxes right now because of their income level, their adjusted gross income level will not pay taxes. So it doesn't put everyone into the tax bracket. So I guess if you're saying if you pay no taxes now, you're not going to lower your taxes because you're not paying taxes. So any state income tax, I guess I should say. So I guess if you look at it that way, not everybody will get a lower tax, because I don't think you can get lower than 0. But anyone that is paying taxes right now, the first 3 years is when this is implemented. It's fully implemented in 2026. So I think we're at 6% now. A couple of years ago, we were at 8.53, and it'll just slowly make its way down to the 3.9 flat tax. So that's kind of where that's at. So.
Thank you. Anybody else want to add anything? Okay, this is a question probably for Representative Meyer. What is being done to raise fines for texting and driving? 30 is not enough to help slow down texting. What about 500, first offense, license suspended, 30 days in jail?
I would like to just get the distracted driving bill passed. I have had literally about an hour and a half debate, discussion with our leadership about this. My understanding is that the Senate is not going to take this up, and so he doesn't want to bring it to the floor. I'm still fighting that. There was a Des Moines Register poll that came out last Friday, that 70% of all Iowans want the distracted driving bill enacted. In that bill, it will raise the penalty that's currently in place now, and it's not just for texting. Right now, our law enforcement does not have a tool to enforce the texting and driving bill that's on the books right now, because if someone is holding their phone, the police can pull them over and they can say, oh, I was looking at my map, or I was looking for emergency traffic issues that might be coming up, or I was just glancing at something else. I wasn't sending a text. This gives them the opportunity not to take your phone away from you, not to look at your phone, but if you have your phone in your hand, it gives them the opportunity to pull you over and assign a penalty, which I think is very fair. And I don't, when I'm talking with people who don't like this bill, and there are several people that I respect that don't like this bill, when they tell me, oh, it's about, I don't think police should be looking in our cars, and we should have the right to do what we want when we're in our cars. I'll always end that conversation with, so you're okay with drunk driving, right? Because this is exactly the same results. We have the same results from drunk driving, and it's not just a few times a day. It's not just in the morning for people that work midnights, that go out to drink and drive home. It's not for people in the evening. This happens all day long. It's my third year on this bill. Again, I've asked Public Safety to speak to Senate leadership about this new poll that came out. The only way it can be alive, it did make it through a committee, the only way it can be alive this year is if I throw it on another bill as an amendment, which we don't like to do that. We don't like to send things that haven't been through the floor. I have counted the votes in my own chamber. I have enough votes in my chamber to pass the bill. This isn't going to go away for me.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
I think it does, and then also maybe the Senate can also, offer their opinion about what might or might not happen in the Senate.
I mean, I guess I'm not aware of what the leadership is saying, but I would be in favor of the bill myself. So I would call Representative Meyer that's fake news, but no.
So,
Senator Green?
well, from a freshman perspective, I can understand where Ann's coming from, where there's a lot of things that come up that you'll hear, well, the other chamber's not going to take it up, so we're not going to take it up. And to me, that's been the most frustrating part, trying to adapt to this environment, because to me, it's like, why not let a bill hit the floor and let legislators do their job and put their vote down, and so what if a bill fails? I think it makes legislators honest with their constituents, And I see no shame in letting a bill fail if it hits the floor. It lets people know where people stand. And I would say that's been my number one frustration, because I wish a lot of these bills would hit the floor that don't end up hitting the floor. And I would support Ann's bill.
Well, maybe you guys go back and talk to leadership next week. So see how that goes. Here's a question about the transgender issue. Do you believe the bill Governor Reynolds signed to protect girls and women's sports goes far enough?
I'll start first. I do think it goes far enough.
Okay.
Without any further explanation, it's fair for, and I had a talk with a group at Fort Dodge Senior High last night. We didn't agree on the issue, but men and women are made differently. Men have larger hearts, they have larger lungs, they're stronger, and literally, unless someone takes a blocking agent before they start puberty, there's not an equal match. So, I think the bill goes far enough.
Anybody else? Nope. Okay. Other than the unemployment law changes that you've made, what else is being done to attract workforce to Iowa and Fort Dodge?
Well, we got a very competitive tax environment now, and that's step number one. Step number two is investing in our education system and our community colleges, and providing opportunities for people to get the educational needs that they have to better their skills and increase their capacity to enter into society and provide more contributions. And right now in Iowa, it's a great time to live in Iowa, and there's I think we have a lot to be proud of this year with the legislation that we passed. We're definitely going to be one of the most competitive states in the Midwest for attracting a great workforce.
And I'll go next. Again, in the Health and Human Service budget, we are attracting workforce, number one, by raising wages for direct care workers. And again, there's language that specifically that's what that money's going for. We have the loan repayment fund, which is meant to attract out-of-state workers to professionally to keep them in Iowa working for 5 years and hopefully put down their roots and live here.
I know they said other than, whoever asked the question, other than the workforce or the unemployment bill, but I think it's good for us to explain a little bit further on the unemployment bill. The majority of people, if they're unemployed for 6 months and they get 6 months of benefits, the majority of them go back to work that last couple weeks when they know that their benefits are running out. So when we shorten that up about in half, then hopefully people will get back to work a little bit earlier. If you're not working, you're not making as much on unemployment as you would be when you're working either. So that's important to know, but a lot of the people aren't going back to the workforce to also have children at home, and the children at home, what they're paying for daycare plus what they're getting in from unemployment is probably pretty equal to what they were making. So then they're just deciding to stay home because net-wise at the end of the month they probably net about the same amount of money if they went to work or they stayed home. So we need to get not only the people back to work that are staying home, but we also, and I don't, Ann probably addressed this, or we have addressed it before, is to provide higher wages for daycares, maybe more seats for daycares. We continually are talking, with our corporations in the area. I think it would be nice if we had a bunch of corporations in the area that got together and did their own daycare and promised their workers a certain amount of seats at that daycare, that the people that work there would have those seats waiting for them to fill with their children when they go to work. But those are things down the road that I think we have to continue to address. I think one of the main things that contributes to our workforce shortage is childcare, and I think we have to make it more affordable and we have to make it more accessible.
And another thing we continue to work on is reciprocity with licensure from other states, so that, especially now that we've, it's a kind of a group effort and a many-pronged fork to get people to come to Iowa. So, as all the legislators up here, my colleagues talked about, it's the tax piece, it's the child care piece, but it's also making it easier for folks that are licensed outside of the state to be able to come into Iowa and not have them have to jump through tons and tons of hurdles when their licensure is very similar to what we have in Iowa. So that's another piece that we continue to work on as well.
I think the last, maybe it's the last unless somebody else wants to talk, but another thing is getting broadband to every home. Last year was $100 million that we committed to that, and then we've got the infrastructure money from the federal government this year that continues to bring fiber to every home in Iowa. The pandemic, what it did is it allowed a lot of people to work from home. So not only did they were comfortable working from home and doing a good job, but the problem was that they found out how weak their internet was, and they didn't do the things that they probably needed to do from home. So it's very important also for us to be reaching every home and every corner on every mile of Iowa to make sure that they have high-speed internet so that we can attract people to an Iowa life, but yet they can work from home, which makes it more appealing. It is cheaper to work or to live in Iowa than it would be probably in Illinois or the Minneapolis area or a lot of the surrounding states. So that would be great for us to provide high-speed internet to all homes so that we could attract people to have the Iowa life but actually work here from home.
Vouchers this year, progress of parental choice for schooling. Where do we stand with that option?
Well, the education savings account, or vouchers, that's kind of what folks call it. As the Senate passed that over the House, it's in the House. There are not enough votes in the House. We've tried a couple times to whip votes, and we don't have it. So now they've changed. The proposal now is that it would affect schools over 5,000 students. Is that right?
Yes.
5,000 students, which would it wouldn't affect our rural schools, and that's what we hear from a lot of constituents is they're worried about the rural schools. This would just be I think there's 10 or 12 big schools that it would affect. And the other thing that kind of bothers me is they keep talking about that it's for poorer families. Well, it's 400% of poverty, which for a family of four in the state of Iowa is like $104,000. If that's poor, I don't know. So I said, I truly believe that number needs to be 300% or 200% of poverty if that's where we need to be. But the short answer is I don't think that bill will make it out of the House this year.
Well, I was talking to a former Speaker of the House where he said when it came to bills that he wasn't quite sure if he had enough votes, if he was a handful of votes away. There was a couple times that he would let a bill hit the floor because he knew that the remaining handful of votes would come his way because they would go along with the party. Again, I mentioned earlier how I think it would be a healthier system if we let bills hit the floor and let people place their yes or no vote and be honest with the constituents. I do not care about coming home early. I care about going down there and doing our job. This is a unique opportunity in the state of Iowa. This is the largest Republican majority in almost 40 years. We have a very popular governor who gave us this plan, and I think we need to back her. She's She's really thought this plan out. There's many states that she has implemented their school choice policies into ours. It's been very well thought out. Now it's just letting the bill hit the floor, and I think the votes would probably be there if the bill hit the floor. There's quite a few other issues that come up like that if the bill would hit the floor. In the Senate, I know that we have the votes for the Convention of the States, which is a bill that I sponsored. But they're concerned that in the House, if they don't have the votes in the House, so they don't let the bill hit the floor there. We got the ethanol bill that's still in the Senate, being researched out. And it's a significant piece of legislation. It's okay to take our time and research these issues out. But I'm very confident that in this environment, there is no reason for any Republican to leave the Capitol disappointed this year. We all need to work together and make sure that we get the job done.
Yeah, I think, to be clear, Representative Sexton, when he said they, he means the House. The Senate has voted school choice for probably my sixth or seventh vote, and every year it seems like the bill gets weaker and weaker and weaker. And so the Senate is standing pretty firm on this. It's the House that can't get the votes, and so then they're watering it down and basically making it for 5,000 students and above. And I, just guessing, I would imagine if it did make it, I would probably say that the governor wouldn't sign it anyway. So it just is going to take maybe some different members in the House that are willing to take that vote, and that's basically what it comes down to. It's not the Senate that's weakening it. It's the other chamber that just can't get the votes to pass it the way that we passed it. So.
Well, I will say that I do appreciate the way the governor wrote the bill this year, and we talked about this last month. I'm definitely in support of that bill. I do understand, though, the members that have concerns with it. And one of those concerns is, the reason I supported it is it just hit low-income and IEP students. The concern that Mike brought up, Representative Sexton brought up about the 400% poverty level. If you have 9 kids, though, I mean that brings your income level quite a bit down. It puts you in a different tax bracket. As far as whether the governor's going to sign it, I don't like to call it watering down. I like to call it compromise. We don't come in and get everything we want. I would love to have passed every bill that I've introduced as is, but very, very rarely will any bill pass without some compromise. And I think that that's what they're doing. Right now, Representative Wills, who's up in Okoboji, he is working very, very hard to take everyone's concerns into account and working in good faith with everyone. I'm not sure that we're going to have the votes or not. I assume that as the whip, Representative Sexton knows if we have the votes or not, but I know that some people have, with the compromises, have changed their vote to a yes.
Legislation related to tort reform last week. And with that, we've got a good trucking industry.
Well, and this should make Senator Green happy because that's exactly what the House did. We were right. It takes 51 votes to pass anything off the House floor, and so we were at 50 or 51, and so and that was they tied trucking tort reform, which capped the amount of damages, and then the medical freedom bill, and they tied those two things together, and we brought them up on the House floor, and it only received 50 votes. So there's a situation where the speaker decided, you know what, let's just put it up there and make people vote for it or vote against it. So, so that's what we did, and since it failed, that it's going to be, I know trucking's huge for Fort Dodge. I supported it. I have my votes, and I'm glad we did it because, you know, you had to vote, and my green light went up there. I supported it. But we won't take another vote on it this year. It'll be dead.
Same thing. I support tort reform across the board. When we're talking about capping damages, we're not talking about capping economic damages, what you're losing in possibly loss of job, medical expenses, anything like that. We're talking about an unquantifiable pain and suffering damage. I have been supporting medical liability tort reform since before I was elected. It's the same thing. We, again, not economic damages, non-capped. Punitive damages will not be capped. We have a $1 million cap on pain and suffering, which, again, non-quantifiable. The states surrounding us have that cap in place. This week, Mercy One in Iowa City has just received the largest judgment against them for an OB case. I would honestly assume that this OB unit is going to be closed because of it. It's a $96 million. The lawyer that came to Iowa to try this case is a Michigan lawyer. Michigan has caps in place. This is Jeffrey Feiger, and I don't know if any of you guys remember him. He is the lawyer that defended Jack Kevorkian from when he was assisted suicide. Yes. He is majored in drama and then went to law school. And this is the honest to God truth. We've been dealing with him in Michigan since my husband was in training. And Jim said in a case in the early 90s, it was about a child that was born with a genetic defect. Nothing the doctor did. It's, again, genetics, but genetics was an early study back in the 90s. But they had the proof, and Feiger got up in front of the jury and said, I don't know anything about this voodoo medicine. I know that this is a tragic outcome for this family. And in Michigan, he got the largest OB-GYN judgment against them. We need to take care of people. Juries cannot look at any other case. They can't look at any other thing outside of this case. But as a legislature, we have to look at how every single case affects our healthcare system. Since 2000, we've lost 30 OB units. Since 2004, we've lost 24, and 18 of those OB units were closed. Their main reason were liability insurance reasons. Last year, we propped up the family practice training center in Siouxland. They were going to close. That's 18 doctors that feed Northwest Iowa. Year before that, Cedar Rapids family practice closed for the same reason. They couldn't afford the liability insurance. It's killing our healthcare system.
I don't know this year, but maybe next year. It's part of the process.
Yeah, it would have to come back as a new bill next year. But
This is follow-up to eminent domain. Will there be another bill next year to address the use of it? But it's now in the Senate. I guess I can ask.
is it there yet?
If we passed, it's over there.
Yep.
It went over, it went over.
So but you pass it, you pass it on,
Paged over.
it was on Wednesday you passed it, right?
Yeah, no, we passed it Thursday.
Thursday.
So it's over this. So I would say, you know, the reason, you know, this is the route we had to take because we've already got the process started and there's already legal fights and the legislature hates to weigh in on when there's already a legal case going on. But there's a lot of us that believe this was a really important issue. And so that's why we put the moratorium in. And Representative Kaufman and I will introduce legislation next year. We've got to establish the difference between projects that are for the public good and projects that are for private enterprise to make money. And you folks all know it, and I know it, there's a difference, but there's not a difference at IUB or in the Iowa Code. And that's what we've got to establish is what that difference is. And if it is a private business, then a lot of us believe we've got to put there's got to be some way of putting a percentage of so much of that project has to have been achieved without using the eminent domain, whether it's 50% or 60 or 70 or whatever that number is. And then we've got to establish, is it 60% of the length of the pipeline? Is it 60% of the total acres? So it's not just as easy as saying you just can't use eminent domain, because I already know as an agricultural legislator, I'll never get that done. And so as Representative Meyer talked about, you know, our job is compromise, and that's what we do. You have to compromise to get enough votes in the House and then get enough votes in the Senate and then have the governor sign it. So just the way the bill I like, you know, probably isn't going to go very far. So I will say that over the interim this summer, Representative Kaufman and I will work on legislation, and we will have it keyed up, ready to go next session before we get to that February 1st mark. I mean, the bad part is, and my fear is, the Senate's going to pull that out. So I don't know. Because it was an amendment and it didn't deal with appropriations, it will be easy for the Senate to pull it out. So we'll have to see what they decide to do with that.
Okay, I know I've had questions from people about this issue, but I think the biggest heartburn people have is that 3 members of the Board of Utilities Board, who are unelected, have the authority and power to do the eminent domain. I think that's one of the big issues that is, I think, bothering farmers around the state, and a couple around here I've talked to. So is that something you're trying to deal with?
Well, either the first or second year I was down, when I was elected, I proposed legislation to put more members on the Iowa Utilities Board. And I don't know if folks remember that, but I tried to expand that board, and I tried to take away some of their power. And of course, I was a young, freshman legislator, and I got beat down. So that didn't happen. But we do need to look at the Iowa the utility board. But here's the other piece, folks, and this is a piece that is probably worth talking about. But this whole carbon issue of taking carbon dioxide and putting it in a pipeline and pushing it all over the United States, that's an environmental issue. There's not very much research that says this is the right thing to do. And I think that burns farmers about as much as anything. Is this is an environmental issue that there's not a lot of proof, and in fact the federal government has spent millions and millions and millions of dollars of our tax money trying to build facilities that pull carbon dioxide out of manufacturing, and they've all went bankrupt. And so we've lost millions of dollars doing that, and the whole issue is that, and why the ethanol industry wants to hook up to these pipelines is so that the carbon footprint for a car running on ethanol is the same footprint as an electric car. And that's the whole battle, is that they want to make their carbon footprint the same so that the electric car doesn't have an advantage over a car running on ethanol. And the research isn't there, and so here we are taking farmers' farm ground away to put a carbon pipeline in the ground when there's not a lot of research to prove that it's the right thing to do. And so here in America, we are handcuffing our factories and our businesses with this whole carbon issue. And I'll tell you, the rest of do you think China is worried about too much carbon dioxide, or Russia, or India? They could give a rat's crap about carbon dioxide. And so their businesses are just doing whatever they want to do, and we're handcuffing our American businesses, which represent about 10% of the carbon dioxide that's getting put into the air on the face of the earth. So not only is it an eminent domain issue, but it is an issue with the science behind pumping carbon dioxide all over and that's the reason I ran the amendment, because there's just a lot of things with this whole issue that's frustrating.
I think Bill wants you to repeat that.
I'll talk to Bill afterwards.
No, I appreciate Mike's work on this, and there's definitely work that needs to be done. What they passed in the House the other night, I'll definitely support in the Senate. What little research I did here the last couple months on this, when leading up to the hearing where a project is considered by the IUB board, it looks like that Iowa has a fairly more stringent process than other states around us. But when it comes to the time of the hearing, there's, as Mike said, there's public use and public purpose that the IUB has to consider. And there certainly needs to be a third leg to that stool, and that's public will. And some sort of threshold level needs to be voted on or approved by the legislature to give the IUB more direction. And I hope within the off-season that we'll be able to come up with some sort of policy that both chambers can agree to.
And very quickly, I just want to say thanks to those who came to me during caucus and during convention that brought this up as their main concern, because this was dead in the beginning of the session, and because everyone voiced their concerns, that's what brought it back. So thank you.
Good. Follow up to the next question. It says the question was about workers who pay income tax rate.
I guess that's something I'll have to find out. I don't know what rate would be lower than 3.9.
I thought
took away the earned tax credit, did we?
No.
So people that don't pay taxes are still going to get.
I know, but is there a rate that's lower than 3.9?
at this point, it's my understanding the lowest rate is 6.8. So everyone will be getting a tax break.
So there's your answer.
Thank you. Okay, is the temporary unemployment opportunity going to change in the construction field? Contract job still in progress, and that. Sorry, the mic keeps going down. Sorry. Sorry about that. Is the temporary unemployment going to change in the construction field? I have a contract job still in progress, and that protected my guys from having to job search. Don't want my guys to have to job search and take a chance of losing them. They are laid off for 2 months and always get hired back. So where are we at with the temporary unemployment?
It's my understanding that the construction is not affected by that.
They were already excluded, and we didn't change that exclusion in the House.
That's correct. They already have a carve-out, and we did not change that.
Okay. All right, this is related to Medicaid and Medicare reimbursements. If Medicare or Medicaid rates in Iowa are raised, doctors will not stay after 5 years and will leave. They can't make as much money here. What are we doing about reimbursement rates in general for doctors?
The first thing we're doing, first and foremost, we are raising the rates for psychiatrists, nurse practitioners that practice psychiatry. So it is very limited on those reimbursement rates for those professionals. And the loan repayment, hopefully, that's what's going to keep them here, putting down roots. We do have one of the lowest reimbursement rates in Iowa compared to the rest of the United States, but we also have one of the best cost of livings. So there is an equal balance.
I think it's important for us to say, too, the loan repayment plans that are available, I mean, we have them for a lot of different professions. Now, we've kind of keep expanding that, but the loan repayment goes to professionals that locate in underserved areas. So we're not forgiving loans for someone who settles in Waukee or Polk County. You know, they have to be underserved areas, which means our counties that we live in here, and southwest Iowa and northwest Iowa and southeast and northeast. And so if you're going to apply for the loan forgiveness program, then you have to serve in an underserved area, which usually means rural, for a 5-year period.
Okay, good answer, thank you. This is related to books and what have you. It says pornographic books in schools has become a controversial issue, especially when it includes criminal penalties. What do you think will happen with this legislation, and what is being discussed in the legislature? So I don't know who wants to answer that question or start with it.
I don't know. I don't know where are we at on that? That's the transparency.
That's in the transparency bill.
The transparency bill, and we haven't
Debated that yet. So I think it sounds like it's still being a potential for debate later this session. So that's kind of work.
They keep working on it. I mean, that is a compromise. They're bringing everybody in, and they're trying to get it to where it's not a burden on teachers, but yet trying to give parents some ability to be able to see what's going on in the schools.
The consensus in our caucus is there will be no criminal penalties for.
It should be on. It's on.
There'll be no criminal penalties for teachers or librarians, but there is going to be in what we have so far, a method to take books out of the library if they contain that pornographic material. And believe me, I can't distribute it to you, but. And again, we had a legislator a couple weeks ago that did read it at their forum, and everyone who heard the words that were in this book were shocked.
Okay. Senator Green, you want to say anything?
Well, I hate to beat a dead horse, but the easiest solution to this whole conversation is real school choice, and that would solve all this issues. So
And I think, my suggestion would be just to pull the books. I mean, the schools should just get rid of those books. I mean, I just showed Mike that I have them right here, and Mike was shaking his head when I showed him some of the pictures that are in some of these books that are actually in our school library. So, and I said this last time, you know, as a foster parent, if we were to read this material to our foster kids at night before they go to bed, chances are we would probably be charged, and then we do an investigation and it'd be founded, and then we would lose our foster care license, and then we'd probably be, I don't know, they'd probably come and put cuffs on us and take us away. I don't know, but so if we can't do it, or we shouldn't do it, then why should public tax dollars go to pay for books in our public school libraries that have this material in it? And for people that fight for that, I just can't understand their reasoning. It's just hard for me. I think I heard one person actually say to me that these books, if this stuff is happening to their kids, between a dad and a child, because that's one of the books, what it talks about, stuff that's happening very graphically, that teaches the kids that read it how to deal with it. And I guess I just am kind of lost in that reasoning. I just think it's best if our schools would cave on this and just take the books out. And they don't need to be there. And the argument is that, well, the kids have their phones and they can get at any pornographic stuff that they want to get at. Well, you know what? That's a parent problem. The parents needs to take their phone away then. But for the school to offer that material, to me, is not justifiable. And I won't change my feeling on that. And I would imagine if we took a vote, I'd probably be in the majority on that issue.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
One last thought. A couple of the emails that I've received from people who are angry at some of the legislation that we're considering on this issue, the same people that are really adamant about separation of church and state are the same people that are emailing us demanding that we don't do anything on this issue, and they want these books to stay in the schools. So it's an interesting parallel with those worldviews. So.
Okay. We only have a couple questions left, so we got 30 minutes left. So if you want to ask more questions, send them up. What is Iowa doing to address immigration issues that is affecting our country and our state? It's kind of a broad question, but immigration, what are we doing in Iowa, if anything?
I think that we do have some immigration. We certainly have some people from Afghanistan that we are resettling, and we are working with them to, number one, get them housing, get them translators, and get them jobs. And they're all, from what I understand, willing to go to work and go through those processes. I really don't know that we're doing anything about people coming across our southern border, because a lot of times we don't know about those people. They're brought to us on buses and planes, and not really, that's not really, that information isn't shared with the state.
I think one of the issues that I have heard from several of my county supervisors, not in this area but surrounding areas, they're worried about the vetting of the people that are coming in. You know, we're okay to welcome people to Iowa, but if they haven't been vetted or they haven't been had background checks done, then what rights do the communities have to do this? And should this be done by the federal government instead of at a cost to the local level? So I think that's another thing that we have to maybe talk to, you know, maybe the legal part of Iowa to see how this is all taking place. You know, we, as you know, we'll accept as many people as we can in Iowa, because I think we have 85,000 unfilled jobs, but we want them to be good, outstanding citizens. I don't think we want to take on people that will fill our jails and fill our prisons.
Thank you. Well, I don't have any more questions, so we'll have one last opportunity for closing comments. Do you want to start, Jesse?
I think you got questions coming.
Oh, I do. Okay.
Well, and I will say on that, while we're waiting for questions, you know, the governor sent the Highway Patrol down to help Texas out. So, and she's getting beat up for that. The minority party keeps wanting her to have to pay for that. So we're trying to do what we can to help out.
Okay, thank you. What are we doing to freeze property taxes for seniors? Is any discussion on the table about helping seniors with property taxes?
I've talked to my chair, Ways and Means chair. He's concerned about what problems that will cause for the city without, and we've had this discussion, what will happen with the loss to income to the city. Again, I do think with the mental health levy coming off the taxes, everyone's taxes should start dropping with your next statement in September.
Well, I think the huge focus this year was on income tax, and so to not tax our retirement income, that's a huge bonus to seniors this year. So not to say that there's not more work. There's always work to be done on taxes, and we'll continue to look for ways to relieve tax burden.
Okay. Okay. This is another question about.
I just have it. You know, we've talked about this before. There's two parts to property taxes. There's the the value or your assessed value, and then there's also the levy that's put on to the district or the community. And so all of us have received in the last couple of years, a drastic value increase. I mean, haven't we? I think probably everybody has seen their values of their homes and their assessed values go up 20 to 30% probably in the last couple of years. But the thing is that the levy then is how many cents or how many dollars per thousand that your home is worth. So if your value goes up 30% and they don't change the levy, that means there's 30% more revenue coming in on property taxes. So honestly, what needs to happen is all of us need to talk to our county supervisors as well as our assessors and say, when our value goes up, why doesn't the levy go down? Because we don't need 30% increase in revenue for our community to spend. And so a lot of times it's kind of a blame game, and I don't want to blame it on the supervisors or the assessor, but it's easy for one to blame the other because the property values went up. Well, then we need to lower the levies. And I think we just have to understand how that works, and we have to be able to to talk with our elected officials because all of those people are elected just like we are, and see what has to be done. If the money's there, we're going to spend it, right? It's just kind of the way it is, and we just have to be a little bit more responsible, I think, with the amount of money that we get. So.
Okay. Any other comments on that issue? Okay, there's a follow-up question to the books in schools. It says some schools are not responding to requests regarding pornographic books in the school libraries. How can we hold school boards accountable and the administrators? And can you put more teeth in the sunshine law? Who would like to start with that one?
Well, there is definitely a situation that's happening again in Ames where they're kind of skirting around some of the critical race theory legislation that we did last year. Also down in Waukee, there's a couple other school districts that are dealing more specifically with some of the obscene material books, but the Department of Education, and maybe Tim can allude to this, but I know that there's avenues that are put in place with the Department of Education that people can file complaints, and they are usually really good at following up on those complaints, and that's, I don't know if somebody else can allude or shed some light on it.
I guess I would just say vote.
And call your school board member. Okay, this
vote and run.
Yeah. Is there any discussion regarding social environmental scoring and limiting personal freedoms, ESG scores, / communist control? So I don't know what they're trying to get to here, but
yeah.
Is there any discussion regarding social environment scoring and limiting personal freedoms?
Yeah, this issue, the ESG scores,
what are those, so people know? Not to put you on the spot.
It was first brought to my attention a month ago, and it was too late to file any legislation. And I just received in the mail 2 days ago what other states are doing to address this. There's only 5 states that have legislation to create penalties against financial institutions that penalize people that don't meet a certain criteria for their social justice efforts or environmental efforts. And so some financial institutions are basing who they give loans to and how they treat certain customers based on those scores. And I wish I could explain a little bit more, but it is a serious issue, and there's 5 states that has legislation. I talked to our Ways and Means chair briefly last night, and I'm hoping that if there's something that we can do, we can move pretty fast on this, because some of the constituents that are calling about this are very scared and afraid of what could happen with this type of mentality from our financial institutions. I'm sorry I can't explain more. It was just brought to my attention. So.
I have a card here that talks about the current lowest income level. $100 is 0.33 thousand to 8.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now. My staffer just sent it to me, so I'll ask him that question.
Quit working. Any other questions from anybody? If not, we'll finish, and then they'll be around.
Oh. Could I? The only thing that quite a few people have been talking about, I'll be real brief, it does seem like there is some movement on the bottle bill. I'm really excited about this. One thing that everybody is in agreement to is that we want redemption centers to be profitable. Nothing has changed with the bottle bill in the last, since it's been implemented about 40 years ago, or 30 years ago. And so that's one thing that we can all agree on, is that redemption centers need to be more profitable. So in the Senate, we're working on a bill that would increase the handling fee to 3 cents. In return, it's the bottlers and the wholesalers that would pay for that handling fee. What they get in return is a lowering in the excise tax on beer sales. So that's I'm really excited about that. That something is moving. As the furthest a bill has gotten ever. I still believe that there needs to be a transparency component. There's a lot of money out there that the taxpayers don't know how much or where it's at of the unredeemed cans that don't get redeemed. When you throw away a pop can, that nickel doesn't just evaporate, it goes somewhere. And so in the future, I'll continue to fight for transparency within that program. But nevertheless, I'm really excited about the movement on this.
Closing comments, yeah.
Thanks, everyone, for coming out today. I appreciate all your questions. I look forward to next month, because we'll be wrapping up, and this is going to be the most movement we have now, and the quickest movement we have in the last month. I just want to say something real quick. He wasn't at the Capitol this week, but he is here today. We have a constituent in Fort Dodge that has donated the value of conservation land down in Warren County. And so, Alec, I would want to say on behalf of the state of Iowa, thank you for your contribution. That is fabulous, and it really does help out the state of Iowa and keeping us in good standing as far as conservation goes. So thank you very much. Thanks, everyone, for coming out. Thanks, Growth Alliance. Thanks, Iowa Central. We appreciate your questions and look forward to seeing you in one more month.
Yeah, I'll just echo everybody else. Just thanks for being here. Thanks for participating in this event, getting to talk with us one-on-one. Yeah, I think we're down within, I like to think we're within 3 weeks of being done. So, and I've said this in my newsletter many times. This is when you've got legislators that some of their priorities are dead and they don't have a lot to work on. So this is when the crazy stuff starts coming up and trying to get passed, and so it's kind of a fun time. But anyway, as we wrap up, please, as you always do, feel free to reach out, text me or email me, and I guess have a good rest of the day.
Yeah, I'll just close by saying thanks also for coming. One more month and we'll be back together. Probably have our closing eggs and issues for this year, and it just seems like the year's really sped by and has really gone fast. And I guess when you have a winter that every 4th day you have a 70-degree weather, it just makes life a lot easier to go outside and to enjoy Iowa as well. But Also, I didn't get an answer back on that, but if you want to come up to me afterwards, then I'll get your number and I'll text you that when I get the number later today of what the answer is on the tax question, because that was an interesting question. So thanks again, and you know where to reach us all. If you have a problem or if you have concerns or even if you have compliments, we always like to hear those. Either email us or text us or call us. We're all available anytime, so thanks.
Well, I want to thank you guys very much and Ann very much for serving, because it's a tough job and takes a lot of time and effort away from your family, so thank you. Our next Eggs and Issue is going to be April 30th. We usually do it the fourth Saturday, but this next month we're going to do it April 30th, so please remember. Thank you for coming.